Little did I know that monks have phone problems. Your Father Francis, okay, you're the abbot. You're sitting there. I come in day 5. I'm like, everything I'm all in my head. And then halfway through my little monologue to him where I'm crying, his phone goes bzz, bzz. And he reaches over and he goes, "Oh, excuse me, son." Exactly.
I've got to take this.
Yeah. And he looks for a second, about 2 seconds, and he puts it back down. And he goes, just like he's like, "Anyway, continue." And I was like, "Did this monk?
Are you messing with me, Father?
Did this father just do that to me?" I don't know. It was so sad to me that it's even getting to the monks.
Your first, you walked in.
Yes.
I said, "Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming."
Yep.
And you said, "I was here anyway. I've been here for the last week." I said, "Oh, what brought you to Southern California?" And I can't get the sentence out of my head.
Yeah.
My grandmom's house burned down.
Grandma's house burned down. Yep.
It's such a simple sentence, filled with words I've heard all my life, but grouped up in the wake of this conflagration. That really hits home, man. When your Nana's house goes up in flames.
Yep.
Is everyone okay?
Well, I mean, you've been living in it for the last, how long it's been. I've been only viewing it from across the country.
You're in Nashville.
I'm in Nashville. And so it's my wife's grandma, Nani. And, we hung out today, and she's like, I think, Mike, this is the most potent statement I've heard. She said, people said that, well, at least you saved your life. And she's like, but we lost our lives. And literally, she's 90 years old, has lived in this little red house at the top of Altadena on Mendocino Street for 45 years. Her entire world was her bed, that bathroom, all her wigs, and the little walk to the kitchen, and it's gone. And so, like, how at 90 years old do you process that, and do you go there? And she just is one day at a time. And so, yeah, she's alive. She's in the hospital because it was really stressful to her body. So a couple days after she got out of the hospital, they were in the hotel with her son and his husband, and Nani needs to go to the hospital. She's not waking up. And so
smoke inhalation? Was it?
I think it was stress. I honestly think it was her body, and the trauma of it all just was like, what the heck is happening? And so she was really confused for a few days, and she's back. And so we're just kind of trying to get her strong enough to go home.
So while this is happening, you're monitoring from Nashville.
Yeah. And
you came out a week ago. So that was really, the fires were still burning.
Yep.
So look, by way of preamble, it is fortuitous that you're here in the wake of all these calamities.
Absolutely.
Your book is terrific. Chuck sent me a copy. I have it home. I didn't bring it down. Otherwise, I'd be waving it around and pointing at it and making yummy sounds and whatnot. But it is such a rumination on our times.
Yeah.
And when I think about, what you had to do to connect to your grandma.
Yes.
Right. And I mean, it's also basic. It's also primal, much like fire.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so here we are. So many people, we're surrounded by people now who are grieving because they've lost a kind of connection to a gajillion different things.
Absolutely.
And they're being forced to ponder the connections that matter most.
Yes.
And into the midst of this comes this guy, Carlos Whittaker, who has written a book. And you're a big Instagrammer.
I like to talk on my phone.
The fact that you went dark for, what was it, 7 weeks?
Yeah, almost 2 months.
Right. So you went, you totally disconnected.
Completely.
Then you totally reconnected.
Yep. And
now, just when you thought your book was done,
right,
you're having to practice everything you preached.
Every single thing I preached. Yeah. It's if you think about it, I had to, like, on purpose go dark in order to really reconnect with the humanity that I feel like a lot of us have lost by no fault of our own. Listen, we've been thrown around by society and culture the last, feels like freaking tsunamis left and right. So I unplugged, and I go and I live with the monks, and I live with Amish, and I, have my own micro dirty jobs moment, shearing sheep and trying to figure all this out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel so alive. Like, why do I feel so alive without my screen, without, the phone, without all these things? And so initially I thought that this was going to be an experiment about screens and about our phones and why they're bad. Like that's what I was like, well, let me get my brain scanned by neuroscientists before and after, go live with monks and the Amish. And then I could talk about why phones are bad. But instead, it ended up being why it's beautiful on the other side of the phone. And I'm telling you, that's where I want people that either read the book or follow me on Instagram and all the things to be like, oh no, Carlos is reminding me, even now in Altadena and in Southern California and with Heather's grandma, like how can we reconnect with those that we need to be connected with? And how can we make sure that these screens aren't the things that are tearing us apart and pulling culture apart and making everybody hate each other?
How can we use the screens to make it better?
Yes, totally. That's it.
Not worse.
Yes.
Or not as a surrogate.
Absolutely. I raised in 24 hours $110,000 for Heather's grandma to start rebuilding. How did I do that?
With your screen.
With my screen. So screens aren't bad. Screens aren't good. Screens, I tell people, the screen, you're not addicted to your screen. The screen is a needle, okay? A heroin addict is not addicted to the needle. They're addicted to the drug that's going through the needle. Are you either injecting goodness into your soul or evil into your soul?
Where are you pointing that gun?
Yeah.
In the hands of the wrong person,
Yep.
There's never been a tool capable of greater mischief.
Yeah.
In the hands of the right one, never a tool capable of ensuring greater justice.
Yeah.
So it's a tool. I want to talk about all that, but I'm reminded I went about 4 months without eating any sugar.
Wow.
And then one day I had a strawberry and my eyes crossed. Wow. It was so freaking delicious. It was so, and right. So you realize there's sweetness in a lot of things.
Yes.
But you've had so much of it.
Gosh.
Over here that you can't taste it
Yeah.
anymore where you're supposed to find it or where it might occur naturally.
Yes.
This thing did not occur naturally, but
Right.
it has occurred, and studies show you can't put the poop back in the goose.
It's true.
So let's start with you.
Okay.
How addicted were you?
Yeah.
And why did you decide to go cold turkey?
Yeah. Whether you have an iPhone or a Google phone, every Sunday we all get these notifications that come across our screen that say, Mike, you have averaged so many hours and minutes a day on your phone. Now, what I used to do is I just swipe it away because I didn't want to look at it, right? It'd make you nauseous. And one Sunday, 2 years ago, I saw it and it said, Carlos, you spend 7 hours and 23 minutes a day on your screen. And I was like, my God, that is awful. Awful.
Is there an explanation point or a thumbs up? Or do they just deliver it? Because I do the same thing. I'm like, I don't want to know this.
You don't want to know this. You don't want to know this. Yeah. So no, it just slides across. It just tells you, it slides across. And again, I swipe it away. I never look at it. But one Sunday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the math. Let me just do the math. So pulled out my little calculator, entered in 7 hours, 23 minutes a day. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's 49 hours a week. That's 2 entire cycles of the sun around this planet as we're spinning. That's 2 days of the week. Okay.
That's a job and a quarter.
Yeah.
Full time.
That I'm staring at my phone. Then I was like, well, let me keep doing the math. 49 hours a week equals about 100 days a year. So 100 days a year, I'm looking at my phone. Then I kept doing the math and I was like, okay, how old's my dad? He's 85 years old. If I live to be 85 years old, I will spend over 10 years of my life looking at this phone. And I thought to myself in that moment, I've got to do something. Like I have to figure out what to do. So that was kind of the moment, the Phoenix moment, the me going like, I've got to figure out what to do. So I had an idea. I was like, well, what if I don't know, go away to a cabin for a week or two and see how it feels. That was the beginning of it. But then I've got a neuroscientist friend of mine, as we all do.
Sure, of course.
Of course. And he told me, you're going to have to do this longer than 2 weeks to feel the effects of it. So we ended up with about 7 weeks. And that was the beginning of it. So I got my brain scan before, got a SPECT scan on my brain, did a bunch of cognitive testing, and then lived with monks, lived with the Amish first, never looked at a screen again. Then I got my brain scanned at the end, got cognitive testing done again with a father with dementia. That's a big brain thing for me. Right? I'm really interested in that stuff. And so in the middle, did this living, but I'm telling you, Mike, it was 48 hours and then this experiment was no longer about a phone, right? It was all about humanity and connection and all these incredible things that I think we've forgotten how to do because of these screens.
Now, do you think the fact that you knew there was a date certain when this experiment would come to an end impacted the way you processed your feelings throughout the experience?
Oh yeah. I mean, the first process was 24 hours in, knowing I had 7 weeks left. I was terrified. I can't do this. Like,
talk about the first 24. Like how does the uncertainty or the anxiety manifest?
So it is. There were physical manifestations of anxiety that were culminating in my body. When I say physical manifestations, I'm talking about heart palpitations. My heart never palpitated, but it was like skipping beats. It's like, what is happening? Like, why is my heart? Night sweats. I felt like I had the flu. My bones were aching, joints were aching. And I literally thought I was sick, but it took about 48 hours. And then probably morning 3 at the monastery, I woke up and it felt like an elephant had stepped off my chest. Like I was like, the only way I can explain it is I developed asthma as an adult. The first time I took an inhaler and like shook it up and took a hit out of it. And I went from like not being able to breathe to being able to breathe. If you've ever had an asthma attack, that's what it felt like on that third day. So there was a lot of, again, night sweats, heart palpitations, heavy chest. I was literally coming off of a drug.
Shameless plug. Chuck.
Yes, Mike.
Are you familiar with Ferguson?
I am, yes.
Sum it up quickly.
Oh, they're the largest U.S. distributor of plumbing, HVAC, appliances, pipes, valve fittings, faucets, all that stuff.
You know what else they do?
What's that?
Since 2019, they've given the MicroWorks Foundation over $500,000.
I'm saying $500,000.
$500,000. These guys have been so generous with us. And as I may have mentioned previously, we're in the midst of giving that money away right now. Got $2.5 million of work ethic scholarships over at microworks.org/scholarship. I'm sorry to beat the dead horse as hard as I'm beating it, but the horse ain't dead. The money's real.
Got to hit it.
You got to hit that horse, man. Go get some money and learn a skill that's in demand. And while you're at it, Ferguson.com. You should go there to learn more about how they can help you streamline your business. I'd do a better job if this were an ad. I just wanted to thank my friends at Ferguson for being so awesome.
And just for the record, no horses were beaten in the process of this ad.
Not even a pony. Where were we? Oh, yeah, podcast. So, I think I know what FOMO feels like.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's like if you're used to checking the markets or if you're used to checking your news feed or all that stuff, I get it. But there's something else that happens. Like I remember leaving my phone on a plane once.
Right.
And I mean, I went through the 5 stages of grief in about 10 minutes. But then I went back again and again and again and again and again. And I think the most relatable thing, very few people listening to this, no matter how persuasive you are going to go off their screens for 7 weeks.
Totally.
But everybody listening has lost their phones.
Yep.
Talk about what is going on physiologically in my brain when I go from normal to that level of panic doesn't translate to any other item.
Anything else besides your phone.
Right.
Right.
Why?
Not even your wallet.
Right.
Yeah.
If I had $1,000 in my wallet and I lost my wallet, I would go about the business of grieving for a missing $1,000.
Yes.
And my ID.
Yes.
That's a pain in the ass. But if I lose my $1,000 phone, I don't even know what to compare that to.
Yeah. Oh, I think so many of us have literally built our identities on either what people think about us because of what we're displaying on our phones, or the FOMO that you're talking about, missing out on, right? A lot of parents have trackers for their kids on their phone. Life 360, right? We've got these things, and suddenly I didn't know where my kids were. I didn't know how fast my kids were going. Did they make it to where? Did Sohaila make it to work? Are we? And suddenly it was actually, I think, again, I'm still processing a year and a half later. But I think for me, what I was missing was a false sense of control that my phone gave me. So suddenly I realized the phone isn't the drug. Control is the drug. And that's what I lost. And suddenly we feel out of control when we don't have these control devices.
Man, that's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, but again, do you get over the worry for your kids? You're isolated too.
Right,
So
yeah.
you're not in touch with your family.
I would call my wife every other day from the payphone on the monastery grounds. So that's how I would communicate for about 5 minutes a day, just to kind of check in.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I want to know about the monastery, and I definitely want to talk to you about the monks, but this thing, I don't want to just breeze over it, because part of growing up for me, and I didn't realize it at the time, but my parents see you at 9.
Yeah.
Be home at 9.
Bro.
Okay?
Yep.
What you do between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m.
Yep.
on a lazy Saturday in the middle of the summer, that's between you, your buddies, and your God, okay?
Totally.
Try not to get arrested. Try not to humiliate the family. But we'll see you at 9.
Yep.
And they were okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't know of any parent today who can do that.
I don't either. This is what you'll hear from parents. You may have heard this. It's a different world, Mike. It's just a different world than it was. It's like, oh, is it really? So I've taken all the tracking stuff off my phone since I've been back. And I've talked to my mom. So my mom's 72. And she's like, Carlitos, I am so grateful. I am so grateful that I did not know how fast you were driving when you were a teenager. I am so grateful. I did not know that you were at Sinead's house at 10 p.m. instead of Peter Kim's house. I am so grateful because she was, Mike, I think that our souls and our psyche were not created with the capacity to know what we know. I think we just know too much now. Like, if you think about it, like, we weren't supposed to know everything that we know. And
it's not even knowledge.
Right.
It's information.
Information. There it is. There's too much information out there. And so why do we need to know every little thing? So trust is now decaying in the fabric of relationships, in the fabric of family. Suddenly, now there's no trust. We want to like go to 40,000 feet and just look at like the family in general and like the problems with it in America. It's like, well, let's go all the way down to just trust in general. Let's see how much our kids feel trusted by their parents. Here's the other kicker. When I took my Life 360 off my phone, do you know that it wasn't my wife and myself that were more stressed out? It was my 17-year-old daughter. But Dad, how am I going to know where you're at?
Yeah.
So suddenly, see, there's this.
Because she doesn't know any other thing. She can't remember a time.
No, she can't remember a time. So she's like, well, but so you're trusting me, but like, I like to know, Dad, like when you land in Nashville from a business trip, like just makes me feel, and I'm like, man, Mike, we know too much. We know too much. And so I do think, I think there's got to be an undoing somehow of this. And I mean, it's hard. It may even be impossible. But when I was living with the Amish and, Farmer Willis would tell me to go to the feed store to pick up a part for his tractor, and he'd shoo me off on his e-bike, and I'd, it's supposed to be a 15-minute e-bike trip away, but I'd get lost because I didn't have a map or GPS, and I'd have to ask these Amish, farmers, hey, which way do I get to? And I was lost, and I'd come back 3 hours later. I was like, were you worried about me? He's like, no. Why would I be worried about you? You'd make it back home. And so anyway.
How would we fight a war today when you think about the power of a letter?
Yeah.
Right? In the Second World War.
Yes.
And you think about the way that patience was just required.
Yeah.
You must be this patient to live.
Yeah.
Well, today I don't know how I don't know that there's any requirement for patience at all. There's certainly not a requirement for solitude.
Yeah.
Right? And so when those things start to evaporate, I mean, I don't know how soldiers can soldier. I don't know how explorers can explore.
Yeah.
To really go off the map into, Hic sunt dracones, here be dragons, No, you can't go there. You're as long or go ahead as long as I contract.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
Man, that's the most horrifying thing. If your 17-year-old has a panic attack because she doesn't know where you are,
Right.
I hadn't even thought of it that way.
Right.
I'm always thinking of the parents
Right.
trying to let go, but we're raising a whole generation of kids.
that are addicted to, I don't know, like a lack of, just of always knowing,
Constantly informed. And
you-
what's your heartbeat? How many steps you take today?
everything. I got my Whoop on my wrist, right? I mean, this thing judges me every single morning I wake up, right? Every single morning I'm like, oh, I wonder what my sleep score was last night. How did I sleep last? Oh, I'm only 79%. Gosh, I was 84% yesterday. That's why I feel horrible, because I wasn't. Come on, Carlos. Like all of these things. I just think it's information, and you're talking about solitude a second ago. We are literally, as human beings, Homo sapiens walking planet Earth. The first, almost all of us, right? The first group of generations to ever have solitude be extinct from our lives.
Yeah.
Until the car radio was put into a car, you would have to travel from point A to point B if you're by yourself, and you always had solitude. It's gone. And so nobody even has the need for it anymore. And one of the things I learned on this experiment was how valuable solitude was, how valuable it was for me to not be informed, not gathering more information, not listening to all these incredible podcasts, but just being still and silent. And we're so scared of that these days.
God, it's so true. And we're becoming increasingly terrified. There's something exponential. It's like imagine picking up a book and suddenly seeing the spaces between the words vanish, right? Because we don't have time for spaces.
Right.
There's no time to rest.
Yeah.
But then all you're left with is gobbledygook.
Yeah, it's true.
I hadn't thought about it, but you're right. The radio going into the car.
That was it.
That was a game changer.
That was a game changer. It was the moment we stopped being required to be in solitude. Yeah.
I saw something on my screen the other day.
Of course, we're fine.
Said they're talking about the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Oh, wow.
And it was real. I think it went like this. Knowledge is the understanding that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad.
That's true. So good. Yeah.
So, somehow or another. Yeah. But the fact that that little truth bomb came through the very device that we're sitting here bemoaning.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're up to your neck in irony every day with this.
Well, every day. And again, I think the way that I push back against the irony is reminding people once again, because I'm making YouTube videos, I'm podcasting, I'm making all these videos that are helping people, right? I have a whole documentary. I took a little camera with me on this journey. So I took a little Sony camera with me on this journey. And I think we've got a little clip here. And so I self-filmed myself during this whole thing. And so people can now watch a documentary about me living without screens on their screen, right? So
that's your brain?
That was my brain. This was the monastery up in Valiermo, California, the high desert of Southern California. This is me living with them, with Willis.
That's you freaking out?
That's
you lying on your bed?
Saying goodbye to my family. and so like it is 90 minutes of watching this man in his late 40s go through it, man, and learn a lot, learn a lot of valuable lessons from the monks from the Amish, and talk about how this wasn't going to be an experiment of lack of technology. It was going to be an experiment about purpose and all these things that I found.
But did you know that before the experiment started?
Did I know what?
Did you know what it was really going to be?
No. It was 100%. I was going to write a book about why phones are bad. And
you were going to be the lab rat.
I was going to be the lab rat. I'm the perfect lab rat on my phone 7.5 hours a day. And it ended up being all these beautiful things like wondering and noticing and savoring and getting lost and finding our way and all these things that we no longer use our intuition. Like Yelp is like the intuition destroyer, right? It's like, you want to go to a Chinese restaurant? let's just drive by one, and if it feels like go in. But no, instead we like open up Yelp. There's a guy named Bob from Minneapolis that gave it 2 stars.
He's not pleased.
And suddenly Bob is in charge of my dinner tonight, and I'm like, come on, like we've literally lost the ability. The subtitle is how 7 screen-free weeks with monks and Amish farmers helped me recover the lost art of being human. And I just think that there's all these arts that we've lost again. Savoring, noticing, wondering, that I'm hoping I can help people get back.
But they're all, probably not all, but rooted to some extent in patience and solitude.
Yes. And it was so new for me. I mean, I just kept reaching in my pocket. For the first 4 days, I knew it wasn't in there, but I would reach in to pull it out so I could scroll TikTok. It just wasn't there, and I had to be bored. Like, do you know what it's like to 6 times a day go into the chapel with these monks that walk at freaking 3 miles an hour, so slow, walk into this thing. They're chanting in Latin. I don't know what they're saying. I was so bored those first few days. And I was fighting, just like he says, I was fighting this. I can't be bored. I got to find something to not be bored. And it's like, well, wait a second. Why not? Why can't we just be bored?
Or why aren't you curious enough to ask yourself, what is it that these cats are getting out of this ritual that I'm not?
Yes, totally.
What was the monastery, and why'd you start with monks?
Yeah, so St. Andrew's Abbey, up by Palmdale, Lancaster, up in the high desert. The monks, 20 Benedictine monks. They're Catholic monks. My wife's father, before he passed away in like the late 90s, was a high-capacity volunteer at this monastery. So when I was looking for a place to go, I was trying to find subcultures in America that weren't reliant on screens like I was. So I thought, well, what about the monks? The monks don't have phones, right? Like, let's call them. So my wife calls, I'll never forget, she had it on speakerphone, calls the abbot Francis, that was in charge of the monastery when she was a little girl and would go up there with her dad. Hey, Abbot Francis, this is Heather Barcume Whittaker now, but I don't know if you remember my dad. And he's like, oh, I remember Bill, you're little Heather. Oh, how are you doing? Right. And so I'm like, oh, it's a monk, a live monk on the phone. This is so cool. And then, and then he was like, hey, listen, call me on my cell phone. So, Heather hangs up, and then I was like, wait, he's got a cell phone? Like, everything's already like failing in my head. I'm like, so she calls him, and he's like, she's like, my husband wants to stay at the monastery. Can he do it? Absolutely. He can stay for 2 weeks.
Let's Zoom first.
Yeah, let's Zoom first. So it's a beautiful oasis up in the high desert. It's gorgeous. I get there. I stay at a little hermitage at the top of the hill overlooking the abbey. The monks, there's 20 of them. Many of them have been there 40 plus years. They're all, in their brown robes with their black belts, walking very slowly and
average
purposely.
Age?
They're all pretty old. So I'd say the young monk was like 53. And he literally was like, hey, he didn't know who I was. And he's like, you've been here for 4 days. Like, are you like, he was recruiting me. Are you thinking, are you thinking of joining? I was like, no, like, I'm married. And he's like, we're looking for young monks, but people, there's a whole generation that doesn't understand the beauty of the practices that we observe, right? And so, yeah, monks are having a marketing problem right now.
I'll tell you, and clearly I'm part of it, because it just occurred to me. I have no idea what the stepping stones are to get to monkdom.
Totally. What do you got to do, right?
Where do you apply?
Yeah. They're, if you, hey, listen, Google St. Andrew's Abbey. They're looking for monks right now. So if you're listening to this,
we got some openings.
We got some openings. We got some openings for some monks. Well, look, they're getting old, bro. Like as they disappear, we want this monastic life to continue. But the Benedictines are very purposeful in hospitality. So they host a lot of retreats. It was great. I mean, I ate with them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Silent breakfast, silent lunch. You can only speak during silent breakfast, silent dinner. You can only speak during lunch. So I'm actually naturally an introvert, but
yeah, right.
When you, at least I think maybe you can help with that. But during lunch, man, I was talking like a mile a minute. I was just like, these monks were like, yo, chill. So, I'm with them eating, but it's quiet most of the day. It was a lot, man. It was a lot to process, but I'm glad that I started with the monks, because I think had I started with the Amish and then gotten to the monks, it would have been harder. I think going full force, 20 hours a day of silence with the monks, that was the hardest part of this whole journey. Once I got to the Amish, it was like moving from a cave to Manhattan.
Because I would think the monk experience, and tell me if I'm wrong, but that's very internal.
Yes, you
right?
got it. This entire part of the experiment was everything that was happening inside of me.
Right. Because my experience with the Amish and with the Mennonites, them's with the folksy ways, as we like to say, is very physical.
Very. And very conversational. And they visit, and it was every meal was 2 hours long. They talk. Where the monks was very internal, very reflective.
Wow. So how long with the monks?
14 days.
Okay. And so the real pain points were in the first 3 or 4?
Pain points, first 3. And then day 4, I got it. Day 4, I was like, I get why these dudes are doing this. Like, everything's taken care of. They live in a brotherhood. All their meals are taken. They sing praises to God 6 times a day. It's a beautiful way of life.
Did you make friends?
I made a lot of friends. And my best friend I made there was Father Carlos, believe it or not. And so he was the youngest monk. So me and Father Carlos, we've become really good friends. We text all the time. Monks.
Wait a minute. What?
Yeah.
What?
Here we text all the time. Little did I know that monks have phone problems. So as I'm sitting there, okay, Mike, listen to this. So you're Father Francis, okay? You're the abbot. You're sitting there. I come in day 5. I'm like, everything I'm all in my head, right? Because like I'm at a monastery and I'm like pouring my heart out. I'm having this crisis of faith and he's like, tell me, Carlos. He's got all these books behind him and I'm pouring my heart out and he's looking me deep in the eyes. And then halfway through my little monologue to him where I'm crying, his phone goes bzz, bzz. And he reaches over and he goes, "Oh, excuse me, son." Exactly.
I've got to take this.
Yeah. And he looks for a second, about 2 seconds, and he puts it back down. And he goes, just like he's like, anyway, continue. And I was like, did this monk?
Are you messing with me, Father?
Did this father just do that to me? And then he starts laughing. Oh, maybe I need to read your book. But like I don't know. It was so sad to me that it's even getting to the monks. Like even the monks have problems with this stuff, with not being. I think what I learned there about that moment was at that point I'd spent 6 days. There'd never been a buzz or a ding on my person to remove me from the conversation I was in with the person in front of me. So I'd never been like taken away to an alternate universe like he was.
Yeah. So
he literally left where we were, left me all alone, went somewhere, even if it was only for a moment, came back. But I'm like, I've never left anybody yet. And so that was one of the beautiful things about this whole thing is I was fully present in every single conversation. Even if I didn't reach into my pocket to look at something that buzzed, when it buzzes on your person, your brain goes, oh, I wonder who that is. What time is it? No, is it my kids? I never had that happen. And so, yeah, it was beautiful.
Shameless plug. Chuck.
Yes, Mike.
Do you know what our friends at Pure Talk did?
Tell me what.
Well, aside from sponsoring this podcast, which is awesome, they wrote a check to the MicroWorks Foundation not too long ago for $50,000. I didn't ask them to. They just sent us a check for $50,000. You know why?
That's awesome because they're awesome.
Well, in part it's because they're awesome, but I think they also genuinely support American jobs and they want to help us close the skills gap. And now we're giving that money away along with $2.5 million other dollars over at microworks.org/scholarship. Please go apply for a work ethic scholarship. The money is burning a hole in my pocket. Thanks to the generosity of companies like Pure Talk. In the remaining few seconds, I suppose I could remind you that switching to Pure Talk will save you all kinds of money and get you a free iPhone or a Galaxy. But this isn't a commercial, so let's not get bogged down with the fact that you can go to puretalk.com/Rowe. But just for grins anyway, let's play the jingle. I love the jingle. Pure Talk. It is one of the many unintended consequences of this tech, but it has turned us all into multitaskers by design.
Yeah.
Our minds can't help.
Yep.
Because before we reach for it and before we look at it, we must have posed a question to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
We must be wondering, and we've trained ourselves to know that the answer the answer is there because 98% of the known information in the world is available to us.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
It's what a torture.
I mean, let me tell you, when my first lesson at the monastery was about wondering and how shocking it was when I had a question. I think the monks were walking in and out and I was like, I wonder why they go side by side. So I reached in my pocket and I was like, oh, And I started the sentence by saying, I wonder why.
They walk side by side.
And wondering, literally, I realized, is being killed by Google. Like, we no longer wonder anymore.
You weren't really wondering.
No,
you just wanted to know.
Yes. So wondering actually happens after you say, I wonder. And this is what I try to tell people. It's like, no, wondering isn't saying I wonder. Wondering is what happens when you don't find the answer. And so I had to spend 7 weeks in wondering. It was like I was living in 1985 again. Like, I remember walking in Turtles Records and Music when I was a senior in high school and seeing like a cutout of Mariah Carey. And not
I wondered about that too.
Yeah. And not knowing who she was. And I was like, oh my God, like this woman is smoking.
I wonder if she'd call me.
Yeah. And then I remember walking up going like, who is she? And my friend Peter Kim was with me, and I picked up, and I was like, oh, Mariah Carey. And then I put the little demo CD. Remember, you have to put the demo CDs in the thing, you put the headphones on, and I listened for like, I don't know, 20 minutes. I'm like, man, I wonder who she is. And then I went to the front, and I asked the person at the front, do you know? Oh, no, we just got the CD in. And I was like, oh. So I bought it, and went home, listened to it, and I wondered for weeks who Mariah Carey was before I saw her on an MTV interview. And that's, once again, extinct.
It's also a form of what I was saying before, an exploration.
Yeah.
If you want to be an explorer, if you want to go on a journey, then you have to lose sight of the shore you left.
Yeah.
And that's what we can't.
Yes.
We just can't do it anymore.
That's so good. Losing sight of the shore you left. People are too scared to do that these days.
Remember the old song? Because you just liken wandering to walking.
Ooh.
Which I think is something that there's something about movement. It's I wonder as I wander out under the sky.
Oh, there it is.
How Jesus the Savior did come for to die for poor lonely creatures like you and like I.
Come on.
I wonder as I wander.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's so good.
But I mean, I talked to Chuck about this a lot because during the lockdowns, he and I, we were 500 miles apart, but doing these long walks every morning. We'd catch up, talk about the podcast and so forth. But when you're wondering, thinking, contemplating, and moving at the same time.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
There's something there.
There is.
I don't know what it is, but that's symbiotic.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I think that if I look at the monks again, they walked everywhere they went. They always walked. They would have meetings walking.
By the way, why do they walk side by side?
I never looked. I still wonder.
Chuck, Google
can
that,
you
would
kill
you,
our
real
wonder?
quick?
Can you-
Would you
can
just
you push our
Google
wonder? Right
why monks walk side by side?
Down the aisle, yeah.
Because, okay, so you can't Google the answer.
Right.
And you can't ask them because you're not allowed to talk.
Right, it's grand silence. So I was literally stuck wondering.
How many times with the monks are you just walking around just biting your tongue? Do you just want to, you can't, you literally, you can't ask Siri, which is bad enough, but now you can't even ask the only other humans you can see.
I know. Listen, one of the times that I needed to talk to a monk was when I was walking down from my cabin to the chapel, and I came face to face with a bobcat. And I just remember thinking, listen, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. There's not bobcats, hopping around. So I'm thinking this thing's going to eat me. And I was scared to death. And I remember, I threw a traffic cone at that bobcat, and I go sprinting down after the bobcat runs off, sprinting down to the monk, dorms or whatever they live in. And I see a monk, and I go running up to him, and I was like, dude, there's a bobcat on. And I realized he can't talk to me. And so I spill my guts, and I'm like, and he's just looking at me, and he just kind of shrugs his shoulders, and I'm like, I'm just gonna have to wonder, a lot of wondering, a lot of walking.
This is very confusing. Like, are you allowed to communicate without talking to the monks?
Oh, maybe could we?
I don't know. I mean, I lost my voice a week ago.
You did?
Totally
no.
For the first time in many years.
Gosh.
So I'm mute, which is bad if you're me.
Yeah.
But I'm like in this endless game of charades. So are you able to do that, or is it?
Yeah, at that point I'm just embarrassed, right? Like I'm like, are the monks talking about me behind my back? So you're trying to I screwed up communion. There's all kinds of things I was doing Catholic wrong. So I was definitely trying to not intrude on the monks vibes constantly.
Did you feel like a guest there? I'm sure you did at first, but did that go away?
Yeah, it went away because here's the thing: the monks, they have guests 6 days a week. 1 day a week they are alone without guests on the property, and they let me hang out with them that one day, bro. The beer that they brought out was way better than the beer that when the guests are there.
It's that strawberry I was telling you about.
I'm telling you, it just tastes. You're right. It's like I got to taste true monk community. So 2 days I was there, I got to taste that. during the 2 weeks, and it was awesome. I became really close with a lot of them.
So when did you leave them, and what was that like? And did you go straight to the Amish afterwards?
Yep. So my wife comes and picks me up 14 days in, and I need a little wife time. It was very beneficial for me and her, but me mostly, of course.
I don't want to pry. But
Yeah. It was great. It needed that. So it's like two weeks. With the monks, she drives me to LAX, drops me off at LAX, and I have all my suitcases and a paper boarding pass. I don't know when the last time you traveled without your phone was.
Oh,
but I had to have I was like, will they still take this like as a form of getting on the airplane? So yeah, paper boarding pass all the way. I land in Cleveland, Ohio. My friend Leanne, who hooked me up with the Amish, picks me up, but I don't have a way of like calling her when I land.
Every single thing. Hold on a second. Chuck's actually found something.
Are we there?
Why did they walk side by side?
I really haven't found anything. I can't find the side-by-side thing at all.
I do have a question. Can I use the restroom by any chance?
Yeah, sure.
Can I pee?
I don't see why not.
Is it can we
I'm
keep
wearing
the
a stadium,
conversation?
pal. I'm going right now.
I should have asked you that to begin with, but I didn't.
It's right around the corner.
I
just go.
drank a lot of water, and I've got so many good stories.
Jim, take your time, man.
Okay, cool.
Take your time.
All right, I'm looking for a side-by-side. The closest thing I can find is why do they walk in circles?
It's called, there it is, right there. Circumambulation. The act of walking in a circle around an object of veneration is common to many of the world's religious traditions. Buddhists circumambulate to show devotion, pay tribute, cultivate their minds, and accumulate merit. Although the practice predates Buddhism, the Buddha mentioned it several times over his teaching career and said it purified negative karma and ensured a favorable rebirth. Now, this is probably sacrilegious because we're talking about a Catholic order and a monastic situation. And here I am quoting Buddha. So see if you can stay in the
Catholic.
Catholic
monks.
Yeah,
is what I'm
Catholic
looking
monks,
for.
not Buddhist monks.
Yeah, I wasn't specific.
But look, while we're waiting for Carlos to pee, folks, at least you learned something about why the Buddhist monks walk in a circle. Something ambulation. Why do Catholic monks walk side by side?
I spelled Catholic wrong.
All right, well, according to AI, Catholic monks often walk side by side as a symbol of community and equality, signifying that all members of the monastic order are considered equal in their shared life of prayer and service, walking together on the same path towards spiritual growth. It also reflects a sense of unity and shared purpose with the monastery. There it is. I can't believe we not only have an excellent answer to your question.
Oh, great.
It was provided by AI.
You know what?
And accessed on a screen.
Of course. Thank you, AI. Thank you, screens. What's the answer?
Well, the highlight is highlighted. It's a symbol of community and equality. That's why they walk side by side.
There it is. And I believe that. That feels right. That
feels right to me.
Yeah.
And it's a good transition because it's the community component that what I took from the book really lives in the Amish more than anything.
Oh, wow.
So talk to me about that. And so to sum up, monks, very quiet, a lot of solitude, but they still are on their screens.
Oh, yeah.
You're not, they are.
They are, yep.
And then on the way to the Amish, you go to the airport, but you can't call an Uber.
Nope,
you can't coordinate with your pickup. You're walking around like a schmuck with a paper ticket. It's 1977.
It was. And then I'm just standing there going like, well, my wife told me before she dropped me off at LAX that Leanne was going to be here.
I wonder if she'll be here.
I wonder if she'll be here. And then next thing you knew, I see this white convertible Beetle with Taylor Swift blaring through the speakers, and out jumps Leanne, and she's like, ah, and I was like, the relief of just seeing her. I was like, I didn't know if I was going to like die in the airport, live here for the rest of my life. Like, who knew? And she picks me up, and we hop in her car, and we drive to Amish land, is what I called it, Mount Hope, Ohio.
Oh, so you're in Ohio.
Yeah.
So what airport were you in?
I went from Cleveland. I landed in Cleveland, and then she drove me to Mount Hope, Ohio. And so, yeah.
A lot of Amish in Ohio.
The largest population of the New Order Amish, and then there's the low order, the higher order. They live in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, but then in Holmes County, Ohio, is the largest population of Amish in the country, and that's where I lived. Right there, it was a 4-way stop Mount Hope, Ohio. They've got the horse auction there, post office, couple things, and then just a lot of farms. It was, bro. I'm just telling. I'm a city boy, and to have like a half black, half Mexican, shaved head, tattoo dude dropped in Mount Hope, Ohio.
One of these things is not like the other.
Totally. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just already feeling, and I walk in and Willis sees me. She drops me off, and I mean, literally, I mean, this was just, there's like there's horse and buggies everywhere, and she leaves, and I'm standing there, and no one's coming up to me, and then I see there's a guy like on his plow behind 4 horses, like big Budweiser looking horses. Obviously, like all the terms, all the terms I'm using show that I'm not Amish, okay? And right, the horses show up. He hops off. I'm just standing there with my luggage, and he just walks straight up to me. He's like, "You must be Carlos." It's like, "Yes, sir."
How'd you put that together, Columbo?
And he goes, "You're gonna need to put some farm clothes on." And so I was, "Yes, sir." So immediately I go and I put on my my farm clothes. And bro, I spent the first day just watching this man farm. I went to bed exhausted. I was like, just watching a farmer farm was more exhausting ever. Slowly but surely, he folded me in and by the end of it, I'm like, I mean, listen, I was walking around with some sheep farming swagger by the end of these 2 weeks. But
tell me about the family first.
Yeah. So
what are they called?
So the Millers.
The Millers.
The Millers. Yeah. So you got Willis and Kathy, and they are the heads of the farm, of the Miller Sheep Farm. Then they've got Krista, their daughter, who lives there, who's Mennonite. So again, right away I'm learning. I'm like, okay, wait, what's the difference between Mennonite and an Amish? And Mennonites, basically they're like, I don't know, I don't want to say liberal Amish, but they have
they've been known to play a game of cards.
Yeah, like they drive cars, like they're a little open, a little bit more open. So Krista lives there with them. They've got Diane, who's still Amish, another daughter, and her husband. So what I quickly learned, I was like, wow, there's a lot of where's this shunning? Where's this shunning happening? I'm waiting for you're not supposed to talk to her because she left the Amish church. No, it's like,
where's the barn raising?
Yeah.
Where's Kelly McGillis?
Yeah, totally. All of the things. I'm waiting for all the things to happen. Kelly McGillis. And so I'm waiting, and I'm just quickly, they're unraveling all of these beliefs I had about the Amish really quickly. They're like, Carlos, sure, there could be probably some shunning on some reality show you've seen on TV, but no, we love each other. We're here, here for each other. And so I just started learning. At least with the monks, there was a little bit of, I'm living on the evangelical train. I'm not Catholic, right? And so but I just had more in common with the monks than I had with the Amish. And so I didn't know a thing about the Amish, and the family was amazing. They run a sheep farm. And so they've got about 200 acres, and they run the whole thing with their horses and plows. And I spent the first 7 days just waiting to cut the hay. I didn't realize that cutting the hay was such a big, I'm like,
it's a thing.
Let's cut the hay. Bro, it's time to cut the hay. But no, it's you wait and you wait and you got to wait for it to dry. And, I don't want to leave out their Dottie, their grandpa, who lives in the home 20 feet from their home, right? And all of a sudden, again, American subculture and society, I'm falling in love with just the intergenerational living that's happening with the Amish. I'm like, man, we don't do this anymore in America. We don't live near our family and all of these things for, again, no fault of our own, but maybe a little bit. And so I just fell in love with kind of how they did things, which is one of the reasons I moved my mother and father across the street from me in Nashville, because I was like, I want some of this. I want a little bit of this.
And conversely, I mean, just to make it a callback for a minute, if Dottie's house catches on fire, they run right across the lawn.
Yep.
Standing by.
Yep.
If Nani's house catches on fire, you got to get on a plane. You got to fly from Nashville, and next thing you know, you're in Southern California.
Absolutely.
For a week.
Yeah.
So
it's a different way of living. I'm sure there's a lot of things. If I would have, lived there for a month instead of 2 weeks, I probably would have found more things I maybe disagreed with, because I'm sure there's a lot. But I really loved the Amish. I loved the way they did community. I loved the way they did family. They taught me a lot of lessons. They were really open with me. Believe it or not, Willis and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. He's Amish and I'm not. And we were able to talk about really what you would see on X or on Facebook, polarizing topics over a meal. And we would agree that we're probably not going to see this thing eye to eye. But man, I really enjoyed the meal with him, and I really enjoyed talking to him and learning and being curious. I think that curiosity is one of the things that I've learned since I've left the Monks and the Amish is really missing in America. You know, people just aren't curious about each other's thoughts anymore. Curious about each other's beliefs. And the way that Willis and his whole family were so curious about me made me think I should probably be more curious about other people too. So.
I mean, look, I'm trying to think of the downsides of curiosity. I mean, I know it killed the cat.
Right. Besides the cat.
Besides the cat,
Yeah.
right. I mean, look, the whole Discovery brand was rooted on, one mantra, satisfy curiosity.
Wow.
That's what that was.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a lesson here, too.
Yeah.
You used the word mission once or twice. You know, missions, notions, endeavors, they need constant care and feeding.
Yeah.
They need and they need recalibrating.
Yeah.
And you gotta check yourself a lot.
So good.
Everything around you is always changing.
Yeah.
Including you.
Yeah.
And so the next thing you know, and I don't want to put words in my friend's mouth, but John Hendricks, the guy who created the Discovery Channel
Yeah.
and started with that mandate, satisfy curiosity, he's still alive, which means he was around to see a version of his notion pop up in a show called The Amish Mafia, which was an absolute turd, and everybody knows it.
Totally.
So it's like, it's like the way a great idea can slowly become corrupted.
This is good.
You're right, just like the frog in the boiling water.
Yeah.
There's so much inherently good about this infernal thing.
Yeah.
And I'll let you riff in a sec on all of this, but I think the point I want to try and make is that geography matters in this a lot too.
Yes.
And when you talk about that community in Ohio, and then you talk about your own life and your own grandmom, 2,000 miles away from you and your wife, part of what these screens try to do for people is shrink their world so they can have a community like the Amish have as a default by nature of their geography.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good and noble endeavor. But, it's hard.
It's not happening. These screens, as much as we want to say, and as much as it is a noble endeavor to say, whatever app you develop is just going to bring us closer together. I just, bro, for 2 months, I'm the only person I know, at least in my circle, that has not looked at a single screen for 2 months, right? Like I didn't look at a TV, an Apple Watch, an iPad, laptop, nothing. And I became, I think, the purest version of me I've ever been. So pure. The friend I was to the Amish, the friend I was to the monks, was night and day compared to the friend I am to my friends that I text every once in a while. I do believe that these screens can be an asset to community, but that you're right. Like the Amish, their geography matters. The fact that they're together matters. When Miss Smith's barn burns down, the reason they don't have cars is because they don't believe cars are evil. They just think that if we have cars, we'll be too far away from each other if something happens to help each other. So cars will take us too far away. So horse and buggies will keep us close enough to where when the barn burns down, in 3 days, we'll have it back up. So one of the questions that they ask with any piece of technology they invite in is, will this piece of technology bring us closer together, or will it tear us farther apart? Everything from a TV to some of them have flip phones now. Okay. Amish have flip phones. So they made a very conscious decision. Okay. If you own a business, looks like the businesses are failing because you can't communicate to your customers like you normally would, and farming's not working anymore. So we're going to allow a flip phone to come in because we don't believe that the flip phone is going to bring us farther apart from each other. So those are questions that I think we need to be asking ourselves when we add things into our lives. When we install a new app on our phone, is this going to bring me closer to the community I'm in or tear me farther apart. There's a book called The Lonely Century. It came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And it talks about how we are the most connected as humanity that we've ever been.
Never been more connected.
Never been more connected, but lonelier than we've ever been. And so it's like you got to chew on that and you have to think about it. Why is that?
So how then do you think about the reality for a lot of people today? They are isolated and they're alone. And if through their screens, their phones, they can find community, albeit a prophylactic version of a virtual version of a community, but those communities feel awfully real.
Yeah.
And you can be shunned from those as well.
Oh,
and that hurts, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is there such a thing for a lonely person as a community that's facilitated entirely by the screen?
I think it's a good first step to finding community. I just would challenge anybody. Listen, I'm not very dogmatic with a lot of things I think. I feel like I'm a pretty open and curious person. But I just can't fathom that whoever you are that's listening to this that's lonely can't take one step farther past whatever community you've created on your phone to have breath-to-breath conversation and community with people around you. Again, maybe there's someone in Antarctica that's listening to this right now that there's going to be cases where this isn't the point. I just think that we've all got to try our hardest to find breath-to-breath, face-to-face community. The fact that I get to do this with you, like face-to-face and not on Riverside or not on Zoom,
that matters.
The conversation would have been completely different. It absolutely matters. And I just think I've got to keep reminding people that it matters.
What if, in my alternative universe, the conversation would have been precisely the same? The feeling would not have been. Like a conversation, at least in hindsight, is a transcript.
Yeah.
So
sure,
we could say the same things and we could make the same points.
Yeah.
But the intangible thing.
Yeah.
This podcast was born out of the lockdowns.
Yeah.
At least this format was. And it lived on Riverside.
Yeah, totally.
Out of necessity. And then, a funny thing happened, man. Once we realized we weren't locked down.
Yeah.
Now, it's a pain in the ass to get on the plane and come down here to do this. But, man, I know when I feel like I'm cheating. I know when I feel like I took a shortcut.
Yeah.
And even though it's more efficient, those shortcuts do lead to long delays.
Yeah.
And you give up something in the bargain.
Sure.
Right? This is probably a hassle for you, too. I mean, actually, you were here anyway.
Yeah,
you had the great good fortune of having your Nana's house burned down.
Right. So I'm here.
But, right?
Yeah.
If a thing takes effort.
Yes.
Then you have a basis for something in common.
And we don't want effort anymore. People, I mean, Amazon, I've got a new app that I have on my phone called Amazon Prime Now. Okay, so now there's 3 words. Okay, 3 words. 3 words, Amazon Prime Now. Right. So first there was Amazon. Oh, I can get the thing in 5 days. Then there's Amazon Prime. Oh, I can get the thing in 2 days. Now there's Amazon Prime Now that tells me I can get the thing in 3 hours if I want.
You can get it yesterday.
I
can get it yesterday. I can get it yesterday.
Amazon yesterday.
Yeah. So I think people want community like that. I think people want, and I just don't think we can get it.
Dude, we're swiping left.
Yeah.
And we're swiping right.
Yeah.
We're scrolling up. Yes, her. Maybe her.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll do that.
Yeah.
What is it? We're Grinder this and
Tinder that.
Tinder that. That's what I meant to say. Not Grinder, folks. Not Grinder. Never been a Grinder.
First-hand knowledge. I don't know what's happening here. But no, yes, you're right. Does. I mean, it's and I mean, I even think to myself, so like my Instagram audience, like we do a lot of good, right? My community. I call them a community on Instagram. We've raised over $1.1 million to help people in need over the last few years. Okay, strangers.
I'm sorry. This is so stupid. I'm an hour into this thing. What do you do for money?
Yeah.
What do you do?
I speak full time. So like I speak on corporate stages or faith stages.
What the hell do you talk about? I mean, before you wrote this book, what were you talking about?
This is my 5th book. So I talk about a lot of my books. I got a book called Kill the Spider. How to get rid of what's holding you back. That's a whole other podcast I'd love to come and talk about.
Fine.
To stop cleaning the cobwebs, kill the spider. I got a book called How to Human, 3 Ways to Share Life Beyond What Distracts, Divides, and Disconnects Us. So a lot of speaking I do. I got some courses online that people, I got one called Human School that's coming out. And and I write books, so I write books. So if people buy my books, helps feed my family, so.
Nah, bullcrap. There's more. There's more. Like, why do you, what's the... Like, why do you give a damn?
Yeah. I think I grew up. I mean, we're going there, where I didn't have a lot of people that gave a damn about me, and I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in the '80s, in a predominantly white neighborhood, that I was trying my hardest to fit in with my Gary Coleman afro parted down the side, left and right. And I was trying, all my friends would put their hand in my afro and would like make their handprint and go, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Look at your hair, and what you talking about, Willis, and the whole thing. And I just, Mike, I've tried for so long to be included, tried my hardest to be included, that like, there's something in me that just wants everyone to feel seen around me. And I know as I travel, like I just said, we've raised $1.1 million for strangers in need. It's because people just feel invisible, and I want people to feel seen. And ultimately, I think the funnel's really wide at the top. At the top part of everybody's kind of like, hey, everyone, come on into Carlos's world, But I definitely think, as the funnel gets closer to the bottom, I really truly want everyone to feel seen, and because I didn't feel seen for a long time. So,
how odd that in the same time where we are undoubtedly more connected than we've ever been, we're also probably more invisible than we've ever been.
Oh, yeah.
What a trick. What a terrible bargain we've made. If, in fact, being seen and feeling validated is the goal, what a terrible trip we're on, man.
When I showed up at this monastery with my 300,000 Instagram followers going like, hey, I'll see you guys later. Like I see you, like, I know you're going to miss me. I know we hang out every day. I hit posts. Everyone's like hearting me. Like, oh my gosh, where are you going? Da-da-da-da-da. And then when I hopped back on 8 weeks later, and I realized not a single person knew I was gone. Yeah. Like, there's someone to just slide right in to take over someone's attention. What a terrible trick we've played on ourselves.
Jesus. It's like a hyper version of life. I mean, what really happens after our funeral?
Yeah.
I mean, like, what really happens? The people who loved us most are sad.
Yeah.
And they walk around and they're sad for a while, and people make the food. And they eat the food, and they say some nice things about you. And then there's a whole nother layer of people, your coworkers, your acquaintances, and they come and they're like, that was, man, he was something.
He was something else.
And then, man, they go home and they're watching the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And then the next day and the next day.
Yeah.
And pretty soon, life truly goes on.
Yeah.
And it goes on so much faster in this hyper real place that we've created.
So much faster.
I feel like such a look. I've had a really uneasy relationship with social, and I want to ask you about this too. I got I don't know 9-10 million people on various channels, and I take it seriously too. I don't. Yeah. I mean, honestly, between us, and and everyone. I think of them as my personal focus group. My boss, really.
Yeah.
It's like I'll tell you guys what I'm thinking. Like they chose the name for my show, for my book. I do that.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it is true. If I don't post something on Facebook or Instagram for a few days, I start to feel like I'm cheating, and like there's a dog in the backyard, it won't stop barking.
It's true.
So they didn't miss you.
Yeah.
Did you miss them? And what did it feel like to reconnect?
I missed them. I missed the idea of them missing me.
That's great. I missed the idea of them missing me.
Mm-hmm. That's what I missed. And so, 7.5 weeks later, brain rescanned, tons of healing in my brain. I don't even want my phone. When my best friend Brian, he'd had it the whole time. He lives in Laguna, and I'll never forget. I fly out to get my brain scanned, and he hands me my phone, and it felt like it weighed 2 tons. Like I just remember being like,
Is this how
much my phone? This thing weighs a lot. Like this is crazy.
And I put this next to my testicles.
And right now it's underneath both my testicles.
I'm literally sitting.
Yeah.
I got this. I'm going to take this battery, this throbbing hot thing,
and it's just buzzing under my testicles right now. Yeah.
Nestle it in the taint. Perfect.
And I just, I didn't want to turn it on. I didn't want to turn it back on. I was at such peace. I didn't even need to see my brain results. Like I knew it was different. I knew that my memory, I knew all these things had improved, but my life was just like, it felt pure. Like I said, just pure. And bro, I didn't want to turn it on. And I sat there for 3 days with this thing just black. And my wife's like, hey, we got to pay the bills. You need to get some speaking gigs. I know, you got to turn it on. This pays your bills.
Hey, Walden.
Yeah. And I turned it on, and it just, bro, it was like, I mean, imagine 2 months of notifications that were just like waiting, ding, 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 ding.
Oh my God.
And so this is what I did. I handed it to my wife, and I said, I need you to hit select all, delete. And I literally deleted every single message and started from scratch. And I said, if anyone really wants to get a hold of me, they'll call me back. So I deleted all my messages and started clean, started fresh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It felt awesome.
Do you know what I like to do from time to time? I like to put that thing on Do Not Disturb, and sometimes maybe forget to take it off Do Not Disturb.
Can I tell you? I've had my phone on Do Not Disturb for 2 years.
Really?
I have not had a single notification. My family knows. Now I tell people this is how you can tweak it. I tell my family, I've set it up to where if you call me, this is my wife, my kids, and my mom. If any of you call me, if you need me and you need to talk to me, call me. It will buzz. But if you don't need me, don't call me. Can I tell you in the last 2 years how many times anyone has called me? Maybe 3 times, maybe 3 phone calls. One for my son, he got a flat tire. But besides that, I've never gotten a buzz or a ding on my person. So suddenly I'm in charge of my phone. My phone's not in charge of me. And so I tell people all the time to do what you said you love to do. Put it on Do Not Disturb. The notifications will still be there when you turn your, flip your phone over. It's all there, but it's not ever going to interrupt you and remove you into an alternate universe that you weren't in the first place.
How do we get here, man?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we? I just think of the times. I mean, I wanted this out for this because we're talking about this.
Yeah, totally.
But the truth is, I just interviewed somebody else earlier, and it was out.
Yeah.
And I walk into restaurants.
Yeah.
And the whole group of people. It's like we're taking our guns out in a saloon and like turning them in before we sit down. Take out our phones and we set them down. We do the thing, and then
totally is.
And we're all just wraiths. We're vapors. We're not really present ever anymore.
Yeah.
My partner Mary runs my company. She's got sometimes I've seen her with the phone in each hand.
Sure.
Literally texting 2 different people at the same time with 2 different thumbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think of my dad, who's 92 now.
Yeah.
And for as long as I've known him, he's gotten the paper delivered to him, right? When the paper lands out there, whether it was on the porch in the house I grew up in or in the hallway in the condo of the retirement home he lives in now, I was just home like 2 months ago. Boom, the paper lands, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh crap, there it is, there it is again."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What are you doing, man? Why? When is this going to stop?" And he goes out and he takes a paper and he opens up. He's like, "Oh, look at this, look at this." And there's like 3 other papers stacked up.
Yeah.
the paper to him is an obligation to read, and it's homework, and they stack up. And it always made me laugh to think about that.
Wow.
But now, thank God he's not on email.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's that same feeling, right?
Yep.
Like, like Mary literally just said to me, I've got 400 unanswered emails.
Yeah.
I can't talk to you right now.
Yeah.
That's where we are.
It is. And so what do we do then to be able to step away? We're not all going to be able to go live with the Amish and monks. So how can we do it? How can we be purposeful?
Tell us, Carlos.
Let me tell
us,
you.
Carlos Whittaker.
I'm going to tell you right now.
All right.
And the full name is Carlos Enrique Whittaker Guzman Chibol Cabello, first of all.
And there's going to be a test.
And there's going to
he
be a
told me.
test. Okay. So
Did any of the monks get it right?
No. But they would call me Carlos. So this is what we do. You do the next right thing. That's with every situation. That's what I tell all my kids. What's the next right thing you can do to reclaim the lost art of humaning, whatever that might be for whatever listeners listening? Well, I love that you brought up the paper with your dad, because I think for me and for a lot of people, the news apps on my phone were what were consuming all of my attention. I mean, whether that be X, whatever it is, just news. So what I did, the next right thing for me when I got back, is I deleted all the news apps off my phone. I deleted X off my phone, and I subscribed to this thing that they throw in my front yard every single day called the newspaper. And I walk out, and there's the Tennessean every single morning. It's the craziest thing. I don't know if it's a dude named Bubba in a Trans Am at 6 a.m. that's throwing it out his window, but I walk out and it's there, and I love it. I pick it up. I drink my coffee out of a ceramic mug, right? And I'm reading the paper just like my old man. And I read it, and I get done in about 20 minutes. And if anything else happens on planet Earth that I need to know about, I'll find out tomorrow morning when I go pick up the paper again. So what the paper has done for me is it's still allows me to be in the current cultural climate, understanding what's happening in the world. I'm a big news guy. I love to know. But that's where I'm going to find my news out, is in the paper. And that's one thing that I've done. Another thing I've done is I went to Target and I bought this really cool thing that you plug in next to your bed called an alarm clock. I don't know if you've ever heard of it before. It's craziest thing ever. It's this invention that like it wakes you up in the morning, and you don't pick it up and start like rubbing its face and like touching it, and like it just wakes you up.
That's it.
My phone is in the kitchen, and for the first hour of my day, I don't even look at it. And so I read my paper, I drink my coffee, and I savor my coffee. My coffee tastes so much better when I'm not scrolling on email and things like that. And so I just learned to, what the monks called Godspeed, to have my mornings at Godspeed. And so these are tiny little tweaks, tiny little things that I've added to my life. The book has like 25 of them, but tiny little things that I've rediscovered to start adding into my life that make me feel truly human again. Give me that breath again in my lungs. And
What
it's
else?
okay. So I no longer use maps, Apple Maps or Google Maps, to get anywhere. So like on the way,
How the hell did you get here?
I looked it up on my phone before, and I wrote it on a piece of paper. And then so that was yesterday to get to the hotel. Now I just got dropped off by my wife here on the way here. But everywhere I go, I think to myself, I can remember directions. Like why are we no longer remembering directions anymore? And so like I'm writing the directions down. So here I am, this part of my brain is waking up. There was a study done, London cab drivers, and most London cab drivers have to know how to get around the city without GPS before they pass their cab driving test.
And that's a confusing town.
Yes, a confusing town. And they scan their brains, and the Uber driver's brains versus the London cab driver's brain that have to memorize, night and day difference. And so like, that's something that I no longer do, is use it. You know what? If I have to sit in traffic an extra 10 minutes on my way to a meeting in Nashville, Tennessee, because I don't know, Waze didn't tell me to get off and go a faster way, then it's 10 more minutes I get to sit in solitude and maybe be bored and sit in traffic, and it's okay. So, you know what else that does is I get lost, and I have to like ask people, hey, do you know how to get to, and I make some friends at gas stations I've never stopped at before, face to face. Those are things I've done. I stopped using Yelp. No longer Yelping, restaurants. Like I feel it in my gut. Intuition. What are ways that we can grab back a hold of intuition? One story I'd love to tell you really quickly.
Sure.
That really hooked me when I was there with the Amish is Farmer Willis. We're trying to cut the hay, right? And I'm like, bro, why does it take 7 days to cut the hay? Let's just get on he's like, the hay's got to be dry. So we're checking the hay every day. I finally get out in the morning and I feel the hay, because now I'm feeling the hay every morning, because it's just a new habit. It's what I do. So I feel the hay. I was like, oh, it's crunchy. I think it's time to cut the hay. But then I look and there's like thunderclouds. And I'm like, it's going to rain. We can't cut the hay. So I walk over to Willis and I was like, Willis, bro, the grass feels right. Like we should be able to cut it. But obviously we can't cut the hay because it's going to rain. Like you can see the rain. And he goes, Carlos, I want you to look at your boots. And I was like, what's this Amish trick that he's done? So I looked down at my boots. He's like, what do you see? I was like, I don't know, dirt? He's like, no, look closer. I'm like, they're wet? He goes, exactly. We're going to cut the hay. And I was like, we can't cut the hay. It's going to rain. He's like, my daddy always told me, if there's dew on your boots, it's not going to rain. And I said, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because there's thunderclouds, right? So he's like, I'm going to cut the hay. So I get in the horse and buggy with Kathy. We take off to the feed mill or somewhere. We're there. I don't know. We're 2 miles away. It's dumping rain on us all day long. I'm gone. And I'm looking at Kathy like he ruined the whole crop. Like he rolled it up. It's going to get mildewy. All the things he told me is going to be wrong. We start driving back to his house. We get about, I don't know, half a mile from that farm, and it is dry. There's not been a raindrop that has landed. And she's kind of smiling at me. I hop out of that vehicle. I walk up to him. He's standing there with his arms crossed, and he goes, there was dew on your boots. And so I just think to myself, Mike, there's all these things that we no longer do, but there's dew on my boots. So every morning I walk out in Nashville now and I'll check my boots to see if there's dew on my boots. Is it going to rain or not? But intuition, what are ways that we can get back in touch with all of these beautiful lost art forms in our humanity?
And what if the real horror of this thing is kind of a tacit assault on our intuitions on all fronts, every front? What if this is, we talk about this all the time, man. And like when you moved out here, Chuck, it's like you didn't get in your car without a Thomas guide.
Totally.
And this thing,
oh yeah.
I mean, a lot of people have never seen the like of it, but LA is so sprawling that you can't have a fold-out map.
Right.
It would be the size of LA.
Yeah.
It's just
totally.
So it's this book with these grids, and like page 34 might be attached to page 209.
Yes,
You're like,
it's holding the corner, and then you could.
Right.
So you need sort of a basic understanding of cryptography.
Yes.
But it really helped make your brain understand north and south and east and west, and like that's just over now.
It's over.
Man. And when I think of like there's this yacht club that I belong to. I don't have a boat, but I know a lot of people who do.
Yeah, there you go. That's the way to be a part of that club.
And it's the only way. And there's this conversation among my sailing buddies I hear all the time, which is, we can be anywhere in the world and know within 2 feet of where we are. And the magic and the mystery of sailing at a time before we knew what longitude was, and the search for longitude, and the reliance on dead reckoning.
Yeah.
We were smarter.
Yes.
We were better.
Yes.
We were not faster.
Yeah. No, but
we were different.
Yeah. And who says faster's better? 3 miles an hour. That is the pace that a human being walks. And that's the only thing we do anymore. That's 3 miles an hour. So like I'm just trying to get my life back to 3 miles an hour. What's anything else in my life that I can do at 3 miles an hour? And I promise you that it may feel like you can't multitask. You can't do all these things. No, I think multitasking is one of the worst things we've ever learned to do. Single task well, walk 3 miles an hour, increase your intuition, move at God's speed, get lost, find your way, wonder about things for days
as you wander.
As you wander.
Final thought, Godspeed.
Yeah.
It's funny. I've heard that expression my whole life, and I don't know why I always had associated it with alacrity.
Yes.
Godspeed.
Yes.
Let's get a move on.
Yes.
Speed.
Yes, absolutely.
It's actually a cry to slow down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Godspeed is slow.
It's slow. It's slow. It's slow. I tell people all the time, if you look in the Bible, and you look at the speed that Jesus and his homeboys walked around, he moved at 3 miles an hour. And if we're moving at 100 and he's moving at 3, then who's following who?
The book is called Reconnected. I know that because Chuck has put it right up there. Carlos,
you got it.
Carlos Whittaker. It's I hate to say this word, but it's important because this thing.
Yeah.
I mean, for better or worse, think of it however you want, but it is pregnant with unintended consequence.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as perverse as it sounds, if I were to tell people where to go to get a copy, are they going to have to get on a screen?
Not necessarily. If you're traveling through any airport in America, it'll be at any Hudson bookseller. So you can just fly around, just go pick it up at the airport, but you can go on Amazon.
Don't Google it. Don't do that. Don't go to Amazon. Just if you find yourself walking side by side with a monk, perhaps through the terminal at speeds approaching 3 miles an hour, and there's a Hudson's, go get yourself a copy.
That's right. That's right.
What a pleasure to meet you, man.
Oh man, it was so good. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
This is awesome.
Appreciate it.
If you like what you heard,
and even if you don't,
won't you please,
pretty please, subscribe. Well, I hate to beg and I hate to plead, but please, pretty freaking please, please subscribe.